All right, welcome to RMR Training Podcast. My name is Rich Ryan, joined by Meg Jacoby and Ryan Kent. Today we got an excellent Q&A episode coming your way. How's everybody feeling? How's everybody doing? Meg, you have a beautiful view. Looks amazing. You
Yeah,
got those.
beautiful view. Just had to shut the window.
Now we can't see any of it. Are those blackout? Will that get like completely black at those curtains?
I mean, at night it's completely black, but yeah, I don't know.
Dude, can't remember those curtains we had in freaking.
I was gonna say the only time I've ever seen them is over there in Europe or in France.
In Nice, if it seemed like there was like where we were staying in Nice, it seemed like they could have been like bulletproof metal coverings for the windows, but it like these like metal things came down and then they completely closed. So it was pitch black. You had no idea what time it was. We were sleeping well.
Yeah.
In Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Should we get in some questions?
Yeah. Let's do it.
All right. So this one is from Kelsey Hochlittner. I screwed her up her name last time. She made fun of me, and I don't think I did any better this time on the RMR small group. Her question is, where does your mind go when things aren't going well in a race, and how do you deal with it? Anyone?
Bueller.
Yeah, I mean, once the negative thoughts start spiraling like out of control, it's hard to come back from. I'm not the best example of this because when things aren't going well, I'm not so kind to myself. In those moments, I'm just calling myself a piece of shit. You suck at life. In those moments. But
been there.
Yeah.
I mean, it just comes down to what your why is, I think, at the end of the day, you know, and trying to survive just another couple minutes because you never know when you might be able to catch your breath for a few seconds or, you know, the momentum will shift and like all of a sudden everything changes. So you really just got to keep chipping away and hopefully good things will happen. I mean, I've definitely had races where things weren't going well and then something happened in the race and I got this crazy adrenaline boost and all of a sudden I'm like back in the game.
Yeah.
So you always have to have this like hope that things are going to get better.
And like, don't rush it either. Like, this is something that I've learned like in my first season, my first major race, I had done an extra lap. And I went from being in second place to like 8th or 9th. And for a minute during burpee, I found out I came into burpee broad jumps. And that's obviously when I discovered that I was not in second place anymore. And it was one of those where I'm having this like internal dialogue. And I remember being like, oh, holy fuck. Like, there's no way I'm podiuming this race. And then when I got to the rower, that was a moment where I realized like, yo, I'm still in this. Like, we're literally all sitting here. I'm fine. And then I just kind of like just regrouped and I just chipped away at every single, like the next person and the next person and the next person. And I ended up coming in third and podiuming. And I almost caught second. Second was only 20 seconds ahead of me in that race. So like, just kind of like staying calm and not letting yourself get like super overwhelmed by the internal like negative thoughts. I think that's like been a strategy for me where it is definitely hard to do, but like it's a long race. So you got to remember like taking it step by step when you're not having a good day, rather than thinking so far ahead, like, holy shit, I feel terrible. Like, God, the wall balls are going to be terrible. And you're on like station 4. It's like, that's probably the worst thing you can do is like looking too far ahead. So it's just like focus on what you're doing, try to regroup as best you can. And like Ken said, you can sometimes like find a second wind, or maybe a station goes great because you were able to just focus on one thing at a time. And now you have like more positive momentum in your corner. So that's what I would do. That's what I try to do anyway.
A lot of things can happen, right? Especially in this type of race, like in a running race, like you might be out of it, but the competition's also not feeling great. You know, no one's charging into lunges and like people can blow up. So there is always the hope that things kind of come back to you. But yeah, if you're not staying engaged and staying focused on what you can do, which is something I will try to do. I think that was, Meg, something you kind of alluded to. It's like staying focused on what your current task is, just to take the mind away from the negativity, right? Because that's
Yeah.
where I'll go to, Ken. It's like, man, what could I do better in training? It's like, oh my God, this is happening, not again, like whatever. Like, and then if that starts happening, then you're just like checked out. You're like, I just want this to be over. Like, it's not going to go well. But if you're like, okay, like focus on my form for the row. It's like straight arms, flat back, just and just be in that, or like even feeling how it feels on the run. It's like, how's the ground feel? How's my breathing feel? How's my body feel? Staying present can do a lot for you, and it can get you past those moments that that might feel real. I keep thinking Ken's trying to show us something here. I'm like, dude,
Dude,
not on,
I'm trying to
not this,
adjust. I got this
not this
lamp
type of
on.
show. Looks good. And then, so that is something that I would try to do, is just like stay present in that moment. Whatever your task is, focus on that task. Do you guys like, I've gone back and forth with this, like in terms of mindset leading into a race where I try to be overly positive, right? I'm thinking about the best possible outcomes for what are going to happen in the race. And there's been so many times now where it's like, okay, this isn't going according to plan. And then if plan A isn't going well, there's no plan B, there's no plan C. And it's just like plan A or bust, right? So I've kind of started to think about like, all right, maybe if I'm not winning this race, like where should I, like, how should this feel? Like there's a large chance that the plan that I am visualizing isn't going to happen. So should I prepare? So should I prepare for what might happen? Like, oh, if the sled pull is bad, like, how am I going to think about that? Do you guys ever think about that in terms of like your race planning or like your visualization?
I think if you start planting that seed in your brain before the actual race, it's just not good. You know, I've definitely done that. I started doing that last year, like in Nice. I was like, you know what? I don't need to win this. If I get top 5, that could be a good race. Well, now you've already planted the seed that like, hey, I might not win. You know, like there's benefit to it, but I think it depends on the individual. And I think I'm definitely someone who has to have the mindset that there is only a plan A. And we're going with that. And, you know, it is what it is. But I think there definitely is benefit to having B goals and C goals within the race. But I'm not so sure that works for me.
I kind of feel the same, right? It's like, how many like, will it make it way less possible for execution to happen on plan A if there's a plan B? You know, if it's like your only option, is that the option that you'll have to stick to when your back is against the wall? Or if there's like, oh, well, maybe, you know, sled push wasn't where I wanted it to be, and but your race is different then, right? So it's kind of hard to figure out. For me, I've leaned more toward what you're saying, Kent. Like does not really open up that door just for the psychological part, but it might not be a bad idea to be like,
I
all
lived
right,
my
now I'm
life
here.
off of plan A only.
Plan A or bust.
Never had a plan B. Plan A.
Meg, your thoughts?
all the way.
Same way, I'm guessing.
Plan A all the way.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think about anything else.
Just win.
I think my mind just, if it's like not going the way I want it to, or somebody gets ahead, whatever, and it's like a lead where it's like, okay, this is like a big lead, then it's more for me, it's like, okay, just buckle up. Buckle up. It's a second place kind of day. Just leave it all out there. I think that's my biggest thing, is like, I don't really have like a backup plan, but I would say it's just like, leave everything I have on the floor. Like, that's my backup plan. That if it isn't going as the direction I want it to go, it's more just like, okay, well, it's just that kind of day, and I just am just going to give this everything I have, and the chips will fall where they may. You know, and it's
a good backup plan.
I actually think that's, I don't want to say that's my strategy going in, but I think that's kind of the way my mindset is, just even going in. Like, I try very hard not to place really high expectations on myself. You know, it's just like, all right, this is the test of the work, and I'm just going to give this 110% every time. And I can't control what anyone else does. I can only control what I do. And that's just the way it is, you know? So I think kind of, and there are great, I think having goals is great. Obviously I have a goal every single race, but you also have to understand that in racing, it's not always going to go perfect. The odds that it will are minuscule in comparison to the amount that can go wrong, right? Like to have everything come together perfectly, your nutrition, your sleep, your training, the travel with, if you're traveling, and for everything to come together in a line to have the perfect outcome every time, that's not realistic. So I think just being able to go into it thinking like I'm giving it everything I've got, that leaves me usually feeling pretty good about myself.
And that's fair. It's a good backup, right? It's like plan A and plan B, right?
Plan B is die on the floor. So
right.
whatever I need to do to get myself to that point, that's what I'm doing.
And Nisa had something similar. Like it wasn't going well at their sled pull. I was back further than I was hoping to be, and I was like, all right, well, here I am. I got to race these dudes now. Like this is where I am.
Yeah.
These are the guys I'm racing.
Exactly.
And that went well until I blew to smithereens, and then I was like, I need to die.
Something that can has been helpful for me is just visualizing the race many times before it actually happens. You know, almost like running the race through your mind and fast forward, going through every single run, every single station, visualizing yourself literally pulling on the ski and like what the monitor is saying, and big strong pulls, and that's something you can do just before the race itself, to just, you know, that way, you know, when you're in the race, like you already have gone through this in your brain so many times that like it's almost like second nature in a way. It's weird how that can actually manifest into good performances, is just visualizing yourself doing the race over and over and over again.
I think there's actually some science behind that, like visualization actually being able to like build strength, like improving someone's ability to put out, like just neuromuscularly. I used to like journal that out, like with that visualization, I'd write out every single station and every single run and try to be as realistic as possible with how it was going to feel. Cause I think a trap that I'll fall into is like, I'm in great shape. I'm going to feel great. And like, just because you're in great shape doesn't mean the race is going to feel great. This race is just uncomfortable, you know? So if I'm like, oh man, this is still hard. So I try to be really real with how it's going to feel at every point. Like sled push, like I'm out of the sled push. My legs are blown up, but I can still run. I can still move. Halfway through this run, I'm feeling better. Sled pull, I get in and it's moving well, but I need to hustle type of thing, you know? So yeah, I'm down for that visualization part. It started to get me a little bit too wound up. So I do it like the day before a race. So I have to like get real fired up and then like kind of cool myself off. So I'm like back and forth on that these days for that. Meg, do you visualization?
Yeah, I do a ton. Every hard session I do, I imagine I'm in a race. I'm racing. Usually it's whatever the biggest race is for me at that point. But it's something even all summer, I think I talked about this in another podcast, but my dad had a really big banner made for me and had it hanging on my house. Not everything. It's very sweet, but just it was up for a really long time. He was very proud, and it's now he hung it in my garage gym. And I'll be on the treadmill or I'll be doing a workout, and I'll just like look at it, and it says, you know, world champion on it and blah blah blah. And it's something I basically just visualize myself like doing it again, and like that's the next goal, right? Is like to maybe repeat. So it's like I just visualize myself like in that race scenario again and just like doing it over again. You know what I mean? I think it's been a huge part of what has made me very mentally strong in these races is that ability. I've gotten to the point where like sometimes like I break down after Like I can like get myself so there where I feel like I'm literally there doing it. And like I've teared up at the end, which is probably sounds crazy, but
It's a hard thing to do, especially in
yeah.
those
Or
training.
if I know I hit a workout like crazy hard and I'm like visualizing the race and like that it goes great, even though I feel like shit or whatever, like I can, yeah, it's crazy the amount of emotions I think that can come out from that, you know?
Those type of hard efforts in training, though, it's like when you're there and you're in it, it's just
Yeah.
like tunnel vision.
Yeah.
It's like, let's really try to go there.
Mm-hmm.
All right, here's a fun one. Do you think HYORX is missing a proper test of upper body strength?
Yeah, I saw this one. Yes, I think we should have a
Bench.
bench at body weight at about halfway through.
Just every rep, it's like a pump and run. Every rep you get, just you get up,
Every rep
flex.
you get takes off 10 seconds of your total time.
You get to do like 5 less wall balls. But then that takes wall balls away.
That's not enough. Actually, could be.
There's upper body.
Oh, I mean,
like yeah. I mean, you could go through every stage. There's upper body in ski.
Mm-hmm.
There's upper body in sled push. There's upper body in sled pull. There's upper body in burpee broad jumps. There's upper body in row.
Mm-hmm.
There's upper body in farmers.
Yeah.
There's upper body in lunges with it racking on your shoulders. Yeah. And then there's obviously upper body in wall balls.
I think it's a big separator from other endurance events is the upper body component here. I don't think it is as extreme or is as important as say like in CrossFit, right? Like there are things in CrossFit that are literally upper body limiters. Like there's grip limiters. There's going to be upper body endurance limiters. Maybe the only place where there's a limiter for HYORX is wall balls, maybe for some people, right? If you're conditioned enough to get to the point where you are like, oh my God, my shoulders are so burnt out. I think there's grip limiter on pull. I think that for athletes who are coming into the sport, I think the grip is a big part of the sled pull. But no,
that would carry over into farmers probably.
Yeah.
Because it's probably not your grip's not going to come back that quickly.
That there's really not a test for is like a vertical pull, right? Like a rope climb or pull-ups or what if we just do it all like gym bro race? Like you go lat pull downs, then bench press, then leg extensions. Just put out machines out there. Get the bodybuilders in here. I don't know, what would we put in if there was to be like more just straight up upper body, say, like if there was nothing else, like this is because there are tests that include the upper body, but it's like secondary or tertiary typically, right? So if it was like just upper body,
I like the idea of a rope climb. I do like that. And then I also like the idea of like maybe a weighted pull-up ladder where you had to do like 5 pull-ups, 1 rep at a time. And you would start with like 50 pounds and then you would drop that. Then you'd pick up 60 pounds, do a rep, 70 pounds, do a rep, 80 pounds, maybe 60 to 100, so 1 or 2 reps.
There's maybe like 2 women in the entire women's field.
They would scale it. They would scale it.
Still, like women doing a pull-up is like there are so few women that can actually do a pull-up.
It'll force them to train it.
I'm one of the few, but but
it could be CrossFit style. The weighted, not really, but if we did it,
because like how do you do like anyway. In the PFT, which I did in the athletic camp, there's
Ken has PTSD about the PFT. 14-pound wall ball. Put him in the dirt.
Yeah, 30 hand release push-ups into the 100 wall balls. That's juicy.
Hand release push-ups. That could be something.
I mean, as a person who does 100 wall balls every time, like I was like that hurt for me that time. Doing the wall balls, trying to do them I did do them unbroken, but doing them unbroken after 30 push-ups, that was a totally different stimulus. So even something like that could be a huge game changer.
We could put in a barbell. I'm going to preach about barbell. Just do, or even dumbbells, right? Shoulder to overhead.
Yeah.
Handstand push-ups, it gets a little bit on the
It'd have
skill
to be
side
a
of things.
functional movement. It
Yeah.
couldn't be like bench press, unfortunately.
Sorry, Meg.
That's fine.
Chest flies.
Could you imagine though, like 30, like you had to do like men like 185 20 times. And
Right?
then like women like 135 maybe?
125.
125? 20 reps. Then you move on. That'd be wild.
It'd be crazy. Probably pretty boring, and like there would need to be judges and spotters. They're like hoping people don't kill themselves on these things.
That's true.
I bet we'll see it. I bet we'll see something one day that is just like bodybuilding movements.
Well,
And
when they do it, call me.
holler at Meg. She's yes. You have an ambassador already.
We'll run, bench, run, deadlift, run, back squat. That sounds great.
That'd be great. We need a barbell. All right. What do you guys take in the middle of a race? Do you take electrolytes, gels? Is there anything that you guys would take for nutrition?
Yeah, I carry a gel with me every time. I don't always take it, but when I think back on the races that I performed really well, I took some nutrition somewhere along the line. Usually the earlier the better for me. Actually, I know people like to wait until about the row because that's a good place to sit down and take your nutrition, and you're not running, so your stomach's not jumping up and down. But I find the earlier the better. So if I could take it like after sled pull or something, like even before I start to feel depleted, kind of get ahead of it, has been beneficial for me. But yeah, I mean, I carry something every time. I try to get water as often as possible. If it's out of the way, that kind of sucks, but I still try to make at least like 2 trips to the water station every race.
Yeah, sometimes these water station setups are a little bit like, why do we think this was gonna be a good spot for this? Meg?
I've never taken anything else other than a gel, or I think I might have had some like jelly beans or something one time before.
You've played around with the liquid stuff. You've had bottles.
Mm-hmm.
Would you prefer that over like a gel?
No. I like food, like actual substance.
Yeah, the
versus like water calories or
liquid solution.
liquid calories. Yeah.
Yeah, the liquid solutions I like because it's just easier. You know, sometimes it's hard to eat when your respiration rate is so incredibly high. That's where I find a hard time with like. I think a good spot is after burpee broad jumps, but my respiration is just so high that it's hard to manage the food. I kind of like your idea like after pull, and I think earlier does make sense. But I like the liquid solution idea, but I think it's just hard to get in as many calories, right? Like you can get little squirts of the solution and it will probably absorb a little bit better and it won't be as hard to take in, but it's going to be hard to get like 100 calories the way you could for a gel, just whoop, and that's like in there. So I'm back and forth on it as well. Kind of same thing. Like the science says you probably don't need it, but this event isn't necessarily studied by science when it comes to nutrition. So we don't know exactly how much we're spending. What about electrolytes? Do you think that matters? Like taking some sort of salt
is crucial.
Potassium
Sodium
during the race?
Oh yeah.
I think you're too late. So you're just helping your recovery post race. I think for sure before leading up, you should be double or tripling up on what you would normally take in a day. But I think if you're trying to take electrolytes during the race, like your stores need to be filled before you start. So I don't know, like that's going to help you on the other end of the race maybe, but it's not really probably going to do too much for you in the race, I think. I also take a water-based gel, and that's what I would recommend for people just because they're way easier to suck down on the run.
Mm-hmm. Where do you take it?
I take it after burpee broad jumps on the run after in the rock zone on the way out. I've never once stepped for water in a HYORX race.
What? Really?
Now, in my head, I'm like, dude, we can't be losing time. You know what I mean? I don't know. I just try to make sure I'm super hydrated. Like I said, super hydrated, super fueled with electrolytes beforehand. And I don't know. I feel like I'm just not willing to risk that, but I get it. I mean, if it's easy on the run, then maybe, but it's usually not. So it's like, for me, I feel like it's too out of the way and I don't want to get like tripped up or something.
You definitely
think-
don't want to have like a ton of salt, you know, in your beverage when you're competing, because I don't know about you guys, but I've had experience with like feeling like I'm gonna throw up or barf or something like that. So if I were to have some sort of sodium, it would be just like a tiny bit, like what you would see in like a typical gel or something.
Yeah.
Right. Like having something like an element would just be,
That would be way
much.
too intense.
I think tailwind can be a little bit much too. There's something with the amount of minerals that come into your gut and like the versus the water ratio, like because water needs to pull it out of your gut to get to into like your blood. That if there's more minerals, then if the ratio's off and leans toward the minerals, then you will get that like that GI distress. And that's with sugar too. Like if you're taking in too much and just like not enough water. I like to grab water just to like cool down, just to dump and go, more like a cooling strategy. And there is some thoughts to like ingesting cold liquid to help cool yourself down. Like that's a better way to like to cool your internal temperatures, to get cool substances inside. But the water's not really that cold anyway, you know. So I would be like, I just dump it typically, but then it's like a mess. This is rude. It's rude. Anything else on the intra?
Nope.
This is just a straight up question about HYORX. Is there a separate Elite 15 race at each major that is separate from the pro category? Yes, it's on a different day. And we think that's going to be the case, right? The Elite 15 races are still going to be the day before.
Yeah.
Considering they're on Thursdays now, I would assume so.
Are they all on Thursdays?
I mean, there's two of them. Two of them, I think. Yeah.
Two of them are? Which one? Amsterdam's on Thursday?
Amsterdam's Thursday.
Is anything Friday? Are they doing races on Friday?
Yeah, I think there's races on Friday and Saturday.
They're not doing Sunday for 3-day events?
I don't know. I don't remember, if I'm being honest with you now. I think it's Friday and Saturday.
But yes.
So yes.
And so there will be a separate pro race at every major because they're not championships now. Like they're not like North American and European championship. Those did not have a pro race.
And I don't know if those are going to have a pro race this year.
Huh?
Something happened with the audio right there. Say something.
Me?
No, Meg.
Oh. I'm here. Can you hear me?
You had it. The last point, I saw your lips moving. I'm sure it was a great point. But
I said that all the majors should have a pro race now because none of them are the North American or European championship. Where in the
Open
past,
championship.
Those are now open championships, and there were no pro races at those two races last season, this season before. So that is something different now.
Right. Where there was a pro race at Stockholm, there was a pro race in Chicago. That was all 1-day events, right? That was like in Chicago, we were in the middle of the day. Stockholm, we were first.
That was very chaotic. They were like running out of sleds during the pro heats because the pro heats were like right before the Elite 15 major race, and they were moving stuff, and then people were waiting. It was like not a good setup. So they're fixing things, which is good.
All right. If it wasn't HYROX, what sport or activity would you guys want to be professional in? Not what could we be professional in, because the answer is like, I don't know, nothing. But what would we want to be professional in?
That's easy for me.
What?
Ping pong?
Tennis. All the way.
Pong.
I love tennis. And I've told you this before. I think I follow tennis more than I follow my own sport that I'm in. I just love it, man. My wife and I, we play tennis together. Like it's a fun thing we do.
That was your first date.
It was our first date.
She gave you work.
Just, dude, it's
so
I think
you're not
the
going
athleticism that some of these guys like Carlo Alcatraz has, man, it's freaking insane. The speed and agility and strength and power that these guys have to move and then strike the ball with the racket. I mean, I love it. Like I love a good 5-setter. where I'm like locked in the TV for like 4 to 5 hours, just
How's your
like watching
backhand?
this back and forth tendon. My backhand's actually almost better than my forehand.
You go,
Honestly,
you're
two-handed backhand.
swinging lefty.
Mm-hmm.
Bang. Meg, tennis.
I like the idea of tennis. Also, I feel like when I was just thinking about my answer, like
It wouldn't be hoops.
I probably initially would have said basketball, but there's like no money in basketball, women's basketball. Well,
There's about to be. There's about to be.
So I'd have to be on Caitlin Clark's team.
You'd have to start playing in 10 years.
I'm just getting all the assists when she pulls those threes up from 3 feet behind the line. But tennis would be cute. I like their fits.
Do the women still wear skirts?
They were like skirts.
Skirts. Yeah, it's like that's what I was thinking about that. I was watching. I was like,
I like the fashion side
they
of
still have
tennis.
to wear skirts out there.
I think women's golf would also be cool.
Same thing. Skort. It's anything with a skort.
Anything with a sport, I think I'm in.
Did you ever get a running skort?
No, fuck no. Well,
Why are you locked into these skort sports?
No, it's not for running. Sorry, I'm being a hater. Sorry if you like wearing a skirt when I'm running, and this podcast is not into that.
Golf would be pretty sick.
Golf would be sick, and I think these are good too because they're both skills you can do like when you're 80 if you want.
I think it'd be nice to have a sport that, I mean, if you're like the best tennis player and the best golfer, I'm sure you're recognized quite often, but like a golfer, you just be like, I could not change anything about my physical attributes and just like be the same, just like walk around like a normal person.
Yeah.
It's like I would love to say basketball, but like lots going to have to happen there.
Yeah.
But
I'm trying to play 72 games a season.
Those guys are load managed. They're playing like 60. They're just chilling. They're having a good time, but they're just like so recognizable, right? They're like superstars. Football, just bash your brains in. No real reason to do anything like that. Did Michelle and Anderson on the small group RMR? They're into tennis. I got to link you guys up. You guys got to be chatting tennis. Because the other day I was watching football locked in. Kent's like, oh, I'm watching this set of this and that. I'm like, I'm out, dude. I can't be watching that right now. All right. What else? There was a training one that was good. What stage of training would you guys be at a little over 4 months from a HYORX? So 4 months out from a HYORX, where would our focus be?
Base building.
Strength building too.
Yeah.
Yeah, base and strength. I find 12 weeks to kind of be the max amount that is like palatable for doing that amount of like HYORX work.
No, that's exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
12 weeks still for me feels very long.
Yeah.
Especially that like now, like season 3, 12 weeks, it's like, Jesus, like this is a long haul. You know, like you're doing some things specific. Like I do sled work on my leg day. So I'm pushing a sled after I do all my leg stuff. I'm doing erg work. So you're still doing a lot of pieces, but to like just put it together in like a flow of Hyrox stuff that early, I think once you've done a few blocks of training, I don't know that you need to start that soon.
And if you are doing intensity at that point, Meg, your audio went out. If you are doing intensity, it probably shouldn't be in the form of like intervals that far out. You know, like it's got to be like tempo, fartlek style. I like adding some pieces to my long run. But yeah, like this is the point in your training where like you need to just build your base as wide as you can and work on your strength. Get strong.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Like if you want to be specific, or just like have the movements in there, just keep the intensity way lower than where it would be. Like if you need to feel like you're working on HYORX, because that's probably what happens, right? And I've definitely been there where it's like, I'm training for HYORX today, HYORX workout tomorrow, HYORX workout. Like everything has to be like HYORX-y, just to feel like there is some sort of progression toward the goal, but it doesn't need to be like HYORX race sims all freaking year. And Maggie made a great post about that earlier on your stories about like let's all just relax. Let's all just relax.
Everybody chill.
Everybody just chill. Okay, what do we do for our watch? Do we use our watch for pacing runs during a HYORX race?
No.
I will sometimes click my watch when I leave the rock zone and then monitor how long it takes me to go around each time and then hit that split and then look every lap just to see if I slow down a few seconds or if I'm maintaining or picked up the pace. Usually I backed off a few seconds and I'm like, okay, get your ass in gear, get back up to pace. So that's because you're not gonna be able to really measure or like actually know your pace. So the best way to do it is to just hit your stopwatch on your way out and then check it when you come back around and then check it again after the second lap and just kind of see how fast or slow you were compared to like your first lap or something like that. I like doing that sometimes. Sometimes I get so I'm tired or like I'm thinking about too much that I forget to do it, but I've definitely used that before.
That's how I used it too. Like, yeah, it's like every course is different. It's not going to be 1,000. Your GPS definitely isn't going to work. So if you're leaning heavily on pace during your training, I would push it toward RPE so you kind of know what that pace feels like. But in the event, like you're not going to be able to use it unless you're using how what Kent was just saying. Like, okay, each lap is taking me 80 seconds from the start. So you have like a proxy for what you probably should be doing or where your effort is. And you're like, all right, that was 85. Like I need to pick, am I dying or can I go faster? And if I need to go faster, I will go. So yeah, that's the way to use it. Because it's just not going to work. And if you're relying on it working, or if you're relying on the course being 1,000 meters, it's just not going to be that. So don't even try it. Don't even try it. Okay, how important is it to train the sled directly? And if there's no sled, what are some options for training?
It's extremely important to actually use and push a sled.
Yes, agreed.
Thing that you do, there is a thing with just doing it, just getting reps under your belt. Just getting reps under your belt of every single movement, of every single piece of the puzzle. And I'm gonna go on a limb here and say, because this question gets brought up all the time. Sorry.
Oh, bless you.
I never understand this question though when people ask it. They're like, what do I do if I don't have a sled? It's like,
You don't have
no,
a sled.
you need to get a sled.
That's
You need
what
to
you
find
need.
one.
I really
That's the answer. Yeah.
this question really, it kind of gets on my nerves because I think we get asked it constantly. What can I replace this with? There is no replacement for this. Zero. You can try and do front rack squats. You can try and do the stimulus is never going to be the same.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about maybe going on like an assault bike or something really hard. I think that's probably maybe something you could do to get a kind of like blown up leg.
Similar, yeah. Similar
But
feeling.
there is no replacement for the sled and the stimulus that it requires, the core stabilization, the upper body bracing, how it feels on your lungs. You will not get that, in my opinion, from another movement directly that correlates even 50%. That's my opinion. So I would say if you don't have a sled, find a gym with one, especially if this is your goal, like, and it's a really important goal for you, then like find the equipment that you need and try and figure it out the best you can. Cause I don't think that there's a direct replacement for it.
So when I was living and training in like Center City, Philadelphia, I had a CrossFit gym that was a mile south. I had like a big box gym that was like a mile east. And then I had a gym with a sled that was 2.5 miles north. And I belonged to all of them.
Yep.
Because like the one north had a sled, the Globo gym had some other stuff that I needed. They had some kind of sled, but it wasn't great. And the CrossFit gym had like open gym hours. Like I was stitching all of these things together to try to make it happen. And like it sucks. And it did suck. And eventually I like would drive 40 minutes to find one. And like that is clearly an extreme case, like how important this was to me and to us. Like we'll make that happen, right? But the reality is, it isn't that easy to find sleds in some places. They're becoming more and more available at gyms, and maybe we're just looking for them so we can find them. But yeah, it sucks if you can't find it, but like you kind of have to go out of your way. But yeah, the issue is like the upper body bracing that you need to have is the only way to replicate that is like really heavy front or back loaded squats or lunges.
Or like a sandbag.
Or like a sandbag.
Or something. Like
but
I don't even know if that
could. But like, yeah, load it.
In the lungs a lot because you're compressing. So even that's a little bit different, but
it's so heavy to get that type of upper body bracing that the cadence that you move in is really slow. So you don't get the legs, right? Your legs, because the cadence that you're moving on the sled push is fast. So like you could do like fast lunges, but then you don't get the upper body bracing. So it's like hard to put both of them together. So yeah, like heavy front squats into a salt bike or vice versa or something, and then run, like that's about as close as it can get, right? Like
I've also seen videos of people using a cable machine with the rope to mimic sled pull, and I'm sorry, but that just that
what
ain't
about
I don't know if these influencers are putting that content out that's a good idea. Find a sled with a rope, because that is not doing it for you. I'm just,
if you had to do something for sled pull, what would you do?
I would do deadlifts and bent over rows.
Just hinging and pulling.
Yeah.
the hinge situation, but the step back portion is very quad dominant. You know what I mean? So it's
sled drags or sled walks.
Sled, though.
Oh shit.
But like maybe like, I don't know, hook a sandbag up to yourself and drag it walking backwards. You know, something.
Yeah, that could be. Yeah, because it's getting that like knee extension.
Yeah, it's like that. It's like the hinge is only the first part, and then you're taking 4 or 5 steps backwards, which becomes, you're upright at that point, leaning back. So it's more of a quad movement. So then it's like, and I think that's the hardest part for a lot of the women is with the weight of the sled, the walking back is difficult for them. So like, I don't know that I just think you need to get a sled. And maybe even not a rope, but if you can do backward sled drags, that's going to be way better than standing on a cable and doing like a deadlift with a cable rope.
Yeah, you probably do. You probably do just need to work things in isolation. Like it'd be really hard to do sled pull in like a Metcon or in a Hyrox race sim. Like I just don't know how you could even really do it because there is like the deadlift part. But it's not, but then also the quad part, like maybe it's the same thing, like biking into deadlifts.
Yeah.
Maybe deadlift into cycling. Potentially you can get a similar feel, but the cadence and the skill, it's almost the skill part. That's what's going to slow people down the most,
For sure.
In that first time through. So unfortunately get a sled. And that's one thing too. I almost bought a sled for the gym that I go to because they had a sled. I just didn't like it. It like didn't have a hook for the sled pull. So I was bringing my own sled to the gym and I was like, I'm just going to freaking buy one on Marketplace and just store it here, and I'm like, that's an option too. Like, see if your gym will let you stash some equipment. I don't think I've ever had anyone tell me no, that I can't bring equipment in. So here's an interesting one that, yeah, I'm interested in your thoughts on this. So an advice for a younger athlete who's 19, they are aiming for an elite level in years to come. Like what kind of approach should a younger athlete take when training for HYORX?
I mean, you see right now, the best athletes in the sport, at least on the men's side, are in their mid to late 30s. And the women's side, Meg's in her early 30s. I mean, you have so much time to get good at HYORX. And we kind of saw this with like VJ Jones and Spartan racing. You know, like he was very methodical about how much volume he increased every year so that he could progressively get better year after year, rather than having success very young and then falling off and not having the longevity that maybe like he could have had. So you're 19, dude. Like, you've got all the time in the world to get good at this sport. So be patient with your growth and your maturation, and dude, like, yeah, the sky's the limit as long as you're safe. And you're also young though, so you can probably handle like a lot of
Just hammer, dude.
Yeah.
Do the opposite of that. Just go all in.
I know. But
25 hours a week.
just you're gradually going to get better as the years go by. Increase volume over time, and dude, you've got so much time.
Well, one thing, just to something that you've done, Ken, is just like track your training, track your progress, right? Be methodical about it, right? So you can understand where you're coming from. Like, write your shit down, do it early, so you can have an example, a big body of work that you've done, and you know what works for you, because you're going to have so much time, and you can try out so many different styles of training. But track it. That's something I would recommend for most young athletes. Like, have a journal, have something online, do something, have some sort of program, have an idea of how you want to approach it, and track it out. MJ?
Yeah, I like it. I think when you're young, working on the individual pieces, working on your aerobic endurance and working on your strength and doing it separately for a long time, I think that's going to be a big piece of this maybe potential next wave we see with the sport. I think Hyrox, I just had this convo today. I think Hyrox will very soon be similar to CrossFit, where 5 years from now, the people coming in that will be good, they started working out like this when they were 18.
When they were like 15.
And
right.
we've got on what not to do. And now everybody knows exactly how you train for this. It's starting sooner. The development is starting earlier, but I think that's what we will see in 5 years, or in the next 5 years. So I think working on the individual pieces is going to be a big part of it. And not just sitting there and doing Hyrox workouts again, like when you're this young, the burnout potential, that's the other side of this coin. And with a lot of the really young CrossFitters that come in and have a lot of success right away, there is a huge mental burnout, that it's a huge part of it. And a lot of them really struggle, and they're in therapy and they're thinking about quitting, and they make it a year or two and then they can't handle the pressure, whatever. So you got to build those pieces too, the mental side along with the physical side, because if you want to do this for a long time and have a long career, you can't get burnt out after competing for 1 year at being in the top. That's just not gonna, you know what I mean? That's not the way to do it. So
yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I was thinking something similar. Like, basically what we could see happen, right, is there will be more opportunities for more athletes to do this professionally, right? And that happened in CrossFit, and now it's like, if I put everything into this, I can be a pro athlete at 19.
Yep.
But when you're that young, and this is probably not something a 19-year-old is going to want to hear, like, you don't really have perspective for what is important.
Who you are.
You don't know who you are. You don't know how to balance life. You need to figure out who you are while also trying to be a pro athlete in a sport that is like, you can train an exponential amount, right? Like, for something like Hyrox, you could train a lot if you really want to. You could go crazy with the training volume if you have the time, and if you don't have any other responsibilities around that, like a young person would have. But you also don't have the perspective of what matters.
Yep.
You know, so I think that's where these young athletes are getting lost. Is they're just getting so lost in the training and putting so much emphasis on their life and who they are into this sport, when it's like, the older athletes, like, we've been through it. You know, like, we get to do this. This is awesome. It's not like so much that it's like going to have us do a mental spiral. So that's the other thing too. It's like also live your life. Like make sure that you're doing things that younger people do because it's hard. Early 20s, that's a hard time.
Mm-hmm.
It's a hard time for a human being in right
Just
now.
put Hyrox
So,
on hold. Go
I
travel.
would never go back. I would
Oh.
never go back to my early 20s.
I wish I could go back with this brain and do it.
Okay,
but
maybe with current brain.
yeah, but if that body, that whole thing, no thanks. I'm good
I
on
didn't
all
become
that.
a full-time athlete until I was 28 years old. And that's after spending a lifetime of like an amateur athlete,
Right.
you know, and I still looking back now, I'm like, dude, in the beginning there with Spartan Race, I didn't even know what it took to be a pro athlete, you know, like the mentality that goes with that as well. You know, I was sleeping in till noon and then just casually going about my training, you know, so yeah, that definitely matters.
Hard time. Yeah, just be a person while you train, right? Like I would like kind of like don't just train. And this person's probably not talking about that, but yeah, take your time. How to become more efficient at wall balls?
I think for me, from someone who has struggled with wall balls, I think the number one thing is getting comfortable being in a squatting position. That has been for me the biggest game changer coming from the running space where I never really even I didn't bend my knees like that. I'd like the last time I squatted like that was when I was a child or something, you know. So getting comfortable being in a squatting position. An exercise that has really helped me is front squats with like pauses at the bottom of the rep and just sitting in it with the weight loaded on you and then pressing out of that deep squat. That has been an exercise that has helped me tremendously. Somebody else can chime in if they got something. I'm brainstorming here.
I think that's the move, right? Working on your limitations. Like if you're strong, right, and the wall ball is really not that heavy, it's just not. Like doing one wall ball, you can do it. But if you're not moving well, you got to move on. You got to work on the movement pieces. And what ends up happening is we try to drill it like we do for running or do for like sled push or whatever, where it's not a movement issue, it's a strength or endurance issue. But when it's a movement issue, if you continuously move in these inappropriate patterns, you're just going to continue to wire the inefficiency. So you just need to like make sure that you are putting yourself in the best possible positions as you're practicing and finding where those limitations are. Like yours were like ankles and calves, right? That seems to be a limiter for you, or it has been. You put a lot of work on it so you could get into the proper squat. So like working on mobility with calves, if it's like your hips, if it's like your, I don't know, what could it also be like lower back, mid back, shoulders, I don't know. But working on mobility first and then going into the positions, not just like foam rolling at night and working on your mobility, being like, oh, I'm trying to do this and that. Like you need to do mobility and then do the movement so you can work in the appropriate like pattern. Because if you're not, you're just going to wire the shitty movement and it's just not going to get better. You could do 200 a day and it's just not going to get better.
Yeah, if you're falling over doing wall balls, like you're leaning too far forward, you can't string more than a few reps together at a time. You need to take 2 steps backwards and then come back to this at another time. Because like you said, you're just drilling in, you know, movement patterns that are not going to be helpful for you.
Like you kind of came in with these good movement patterns. Like what do you attribute that to?
Just my strength background for sure. Just
doing squats.
Yeah, just being taught how to really squat properly, I would say. I think for a lot of people, a piece becomes the shoulder fatigue, and it's, in my opinion, they're not doing enough overhead strength work. And I think a big missing piece, I'd say probably especially maybe more on the women's side or anybody doing the pro race, because it is a little bit heavier. So it's like, if you're not doing overhead any push press movement in your own regular training, then that's something I would incorporate. Also, I see people doing just upper body wall balls standing. That's not enough. You got to sit down and do that. Do seated wall balls because you have no emphasis from your legs whatsoever, and that is going to really stimulate the upper body, the shoulders. It is a gasser. So that's another like thing I would incorporate into training if the upper body is something that's the issue point. But for sure, understanding that the mobility takes time also. So just because you start doing it for a few weeks doesn't mean you're going to necessarily get progress right away. You really have to stick with that.
Might take years.
Yeah, exactly.
One thing that I liked that I would do is I would just sit in that squat. Like I would just not do any of the mobility stuff around it. I was just like, I'm just going to get here. And I progressed that. I started like a minute. And then I worked my way up to like 10 minutes of just like being in a squat position. And you could start with like holding onto a pole and just like sitting there. And this is almost more like stretching, truly. And just like sitting there and just like chest up, butt down, be in that position. And it might be 30 seconds at first because it's so uncomfortable, but progress that type of mobility work the same way you progress anything. Anything else on wall balls? What about breathing on wall balls? Do you guys think about it?
Yeah. Yeah, that matters for sure. I'm not an expert, but I feel like I'm getting better. Like sometimes I'm in this like constant bracing, I don't know. Like sometimes I just forget to breathe. I'm like, oh yeah, take a breath, dude. Like it's fine. So yeah, the breathing piece matters.
You should definitely be exhaling on the way up when you're throwing it and then inhaling when you catch and are going down. So that would be, I think, the right cadence for the breathing, if that makes sense.
That's the most intuitive. I've flipped it before. I don't think it's because like, right, you're breathing in on the squat, right? To kind of Valsalva, right? So you're braced. That's the idea? Like it's just not that heavy. But if you can get a big breath when you're fully open, like it might be a better way.
I guess I've never actually thought about how I'm actually doing it in the race. That would just be my normal, like if I was teaching someone how to breathe while lifting, that's what I would have said.
Yeah. And I think it's okay to flip it, right? Like if you like if that it does feel natural, but I think it's interesting to try that. Like I don't want to mess with what you got going on, but if you were to try like breathing at the top, like and then breathing out as you're coming down, like, because it's not so heavy that you need to be like braced through the full squat. But it's working for you. It's working for you. So
yeah.
If you're not breathing well, everything's you're gonna fill up with lactate faster. Yeah. I mean, you got to work on that.
Definitely.
And it's worth thinking about, at least for a little bit. There's going to be a point, like I just did Karen unbroken, but I was focusing on the breathing for like the first like 30 or 40, just trying to be like in a regular pattern. And then it just got a little bit more labored until it was like a little bit out of control, but at least I controlled it for like a little bit. You know? So I think it's important just to have the thought around how you're breathing. And if you can't control it, you just got to deal with it. You just got to deal with it if not. All right, last question. It's about the app. Wow, thank you. The app, what platform are we changing to? When's that going to happen? Great lead out of the podcast. We're switching to a software called Strivey. In Strivey, we're going to have a much more improved calendar view. It's going to have a much easier way to log your results. There's going to be a leaderboard feature to it that's going to see how you're going to be able to stack up against the other athletes in the app. The videos are better. The user interface is better. The app is better. It is just like literally better across the board. I just like can't tell you how much better of an experience it's going to be for everyone involved in it. We're thinking October 1st. We're pretty close. We can get there. We're thinking October 1st. So that's about to go. Great question. Another one was a pre-workout with caffeine. I don't know. Meg takes that Crank Pump
Crank
Pro.
Pump, if you're ESN.
If you're ESN Crank Pump Pro,
I do not know an American brand. I'm sorry. I used to take NO Explode back in the day, pre-lifting.
yeah, you did.
I don't know that I recommend caffeine pre-workouts for HYROX. Not sure I recommend.
I don't
Because it's an endurance sport. Like
It's
we're not
just
looking. It's not purely just power and explosion and
that heart rate right now.
It's just
for-
too much caffeine, man. Like,
you need to be calm in
Yeah.
moments. You know, you don't want your heart.
And I was kind of like, I don't think that's the move.
well, maybe for training, you know.
Like lifting, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fucking iced coffee to the gym on my lift days. That's what I do. That's my pre-workout.
Caramel, macchiato, iced,
Caramel macchiato.
grande, Kent, almond milk, oat milk, easier on the belly. Yeah, I don't know. I used to love a caffeinated pre-workout. They used to be my. I think I messed with C4. Jack.
Just dry scoop it. You were like, that was cool.
that's what crazy people do.
Oops.
Jacked 3D.
Act 3D. Yeah, that's another one. Yeah.
That was I was on the OG stuff too, where they're like, "Oh, shit is like really probably not very good for you." I was like, "Give me that." I'm gonna go crazy in the gym.
I don't know. Four Loco, maybe.
Just crank on some Four Loco, beta alanine in your Four Loco. Get into the gym. Yeah, I don't know. Coffee is the best bet. There are some endurance ones. As ESN does make an endurance that is a little bit more gentle when it comes to the caffeine, and it has other aspects like this is what I would recommend looking for, like having things like some beetroot juice in there, if like cordyceps, or having some kind of like electrolyte mix in with it, and maybe the caffeine, I don't know, 150 I think is enough, 200 tops.
Not too much.
Not too much. All right, squad. Well, that's it. Take ESN products. Power lift if you can. I went to this retail store over in Golden that they'd partnered with Powerlift, and they had a Powerlift fridge in there. And I was like, oh shit, they got Powerlift. I was like, you guys sell this? They're like, oh, they're free. You just take one. I was like, I'm good, thank you. I have plenty. That's all. Anything else to plug? That's it, and that's all. All right, talk to you soon.